Well, better late than never, as they say. Hello, welcome back to Crashing Sounds. My name is Chris, back in Michael's old bedroom for another album review for you. And yeah, okay, I should have got to this one a lot sooner than I have. I just hadn't got around to making the review yet, but clearly the case that I am making this review at all this late into it is because I really want to talk about the album and this band. You've seen the title, of course, it's the new album, or I guess now it's nearly new album, by Avatar called Hunter Gatherer. So Avatar, of course, are the heavy metal band from the land of ABBA, which is what I always call it. Formed in 2001, and their first album release, I believe, in 2006. They've developed a name for themselves over these last few years as rather prominent within the mainstream metal scene, as it were. I'm sure most people here are aware of Avatar, if not for their music, then for their aesthetic. Normally when you're scrolling through various Metal Hammer Facebook posts or Instagram posts or whatever, and they talk about Avatar, you'll recognise the look of them immediately. Since album number 4, which was Black Waltz, the band have had a very loud looking costume design inspired by the sort of creepy carnival kind of vibe, which is nothing new to heavy metal whatsoever. However, I think frontman Johannes especially pulls this off better than most other bands do, mainly because he's a deliciously entertaining frontman fronting a deliciously entertaining band. Since the release of Hail the Apocalypse, especially, Avatar have continued to grow in reputation and are well regarded, especially in the live scene. I've even seen some people claim that they could have been the final band to be announced as the headliner for next year's Bloodstock. Obviously, that wasn't the case. We got Merciful Fate, which is a brilliant find. Bloodstock is really cool. But I don't think Avatar were quite there yet. I don't think they're far off, but I don't think they're there yet. However, I do agree completely. They are a phenomenal live band. I've been a fan of Avatar since 2016, which I know is very specific, but there's a reason I remember that. They were playing that year's Download Festival. Remember Download 2016? Where we all drowned? Remember that? Anyhow, I had heard they were a great band, so I checked out Hail the Apocalypse, which was the newest album at the time. And I loved it. I loved the grooves and how heavy it was, but also how damn catchy it was as well. And I couldn't wait to see them, and of course they were amazing. I was less impressed with the time that the album. Actually, now no, I correct myself. The newest, yes, that's right. The newest album at the time was they had just released Feathers and Flesh when I saw them at Download Festival 2016. Admittedly, I was less impressed with Feathers and Flesh at the time. I admired the ambition of that album, but I thought it wasn't especially coherent. I much preferred the album that came out before Hunter Gatherer, Avatar Country, which came out a couple of years ago. Avatar Country was over the top, yes, but it was coherent, it had a strong through line, and the song Statue of the King is fucking amazing. Then I sort of forgot about Avatar for a while, and it seemed like so did everyone else. We just sort of stopped hearing about the band after the album cycle of Avatar Country had ended, until early this year when I caught wind that they would be back with a new album this August. It's now September, sorry. I was excited for this new album, so I went back and listened to their past 3 albums and remembered again why I liked the band so much. They're just really good. I even gave a re-listen to Feathers and Flesh, and I listened to the re-release where the songs are interspliced with excerpts from the book that was released alongside the album, and it's voiced by Johannes. I don't recommend listening to that unless you're a massive fan of the album, because it feels longer than Ben-Hur. It's an hour and 40 minutes long if you choose to listen to it that way. It does make the album more coherent though, so there is a positive and unique perspective to it, but set aside a long time if you want to sit down and listen to that. So here we are now with Hunter Gatherer. I resisted hearing the singles ahead of the release of this album just because it was nearly out at the time, and I thought, I want to go in blind. I want to go into the whole album not knowing any of the songs. I did the same thing for Avatar Country, so why not do it again here? I would argue that of the Avatar albums I've heard in their entirety, Black Waltz up till now, every album has been clearly distinct from one another, and Hunter Gatherer is no different. This album is clearly distinct from the band's past work in that I would say this is the darkest, heaviest, and most serious album that Avatar have ever done. As serious as they can go, anyhow. Again, I haven't heard of their earliest albums before Black Waltz, so I can't comment on how it compares to those. But listening to this album, there is nothing creepy like Puppet Show, nothing sinister yet playful like The Eagle Has Landed, and nothing fun like The King Welcomes You to Avatar Country. It's almost all serious and menacing all the way through, which is certainly not what I was expecting from an album by Avatar. So it's different by the band standards. Does that equate to good? For my money, yes, it absolutely does. This is a great album by Avatar. It's almost all the positives I had for Avatar Country, but done slightly differently. It's very coherent, much like that album, but with a new, darker aesthetic overlaying the entire thing. It goes off with a fucking bang as well. The opening track, Silenced in the Age of Apes, is probably the heaviest song I've ever heard from Avatar. With its groove-inspired riffs and Johanna's brilliant, harsh vocals. They are so fucking good. Mike thought I put on a Lamb of God song when I put this on for the first time when the album dropped. It certainly does remind me of Lamb of God. I can see where that comparison comes from. And when Avatar throw the kitchen sink at it, there is definitely an air of Lamb of God going on. It doesn't sound like a carbon copy of them, to be fair, and any band that are capable of somewhat mimicking Lamb of God clearly aren't a winner, because I can't think of any modern mainstream metal band who successfully sound like Lamb of God. They're just a very untouchable band. Colossus, likewise, is riff-heavy to a fault, but we also get the first display of Johanna's amazing clean vocals. These don't sound like Lamb of God at all, obviously, but he has very distinct clean vocals that are catchy yet haunting, that more catchy and more haunting here than they ever have been before. He could sing anything with his voice and it would be catchy. It's just so good. I'd love to hear a collaboration with him and Tobias Forge from Ghost. It would just be fucking amazing. But anyway, heavy riffs, going back to those, they on this album are a common occurrence and they're brilliant. I've always loved the dual guitar work from Avatar, and it's still the case here. Whenever people discuss like dual guitar, the guitarists in bands, I will always point to Avatar as an example of that being done really, really well. They have quite a few awesome low heavy grooves on this album, such as Goddess Sick Dreams. But also you get Scream Until You Wake, which demonstrates their incredible lead guitar work as well. It's just all over the place and in a good way, a great display of everything that they can possibly do. Moving on, ahead of hearing this album, I was a bit miffed that the cameo from Corey Taylor was spoiled for me. I read a news article that he would feature on the album. I thought it would have been a nice surprise to hear Corey's signature vocals on the album without expecting it. However, I'm now glad I was told, as I would never have spotted, never would have spotted his input on this album. So as it happens, the opening to A Secret Door, the whistling is none other than Corey Taylor. Then it boots off into some groovy riffs and a damn catchy chorus, so what's not to love? Yeah, you get one of the most notable frontmen in modern metal, and you have him just whistle. That's just fucking hilarious and very Avatar. I bet they had a lot of fun doing that. So moving on again, Child, probably the darkest song Avatar have ever done. Just listen to these lyrics. A little child stood by the grave and was told that it was brave. It's not right to lose one's mother while so young. The child was wondering still that if mother was so ill, then who pulled on the string so the bell rung? She's buried alive, buried alive. Fuck. It's really good though, very haunting. One of the more unique songs on the album, and again something I haven't really heard the band do before, is a really stripped back song, and we have that on this album, and it's called Gun, just simply called Gun. It contains simply a somber piano thing, the kind of thing not out of place movie from a Studio Ghibli movie, and Johannes' somber, clean vocals. Despite that, it still keeps the more serious tone of the album in its lyrics, and if you're going to suggest to me this song isn't heavy, read the lyrics. Very powerful stuff, heavy lyrics in a not heavy setting, which is very nice juxtaposition. I've been harping on a lot about how this album sounds different to the back catalogue, but I feel I should stress I'm not talking about a big stylistic change or anything. They haven't made a black metal jazz inspired thing. On that note, I will probably get to Imperial Triumphant at some point. It's a fucking amazing album, so I've been meaning to talk about it, just all in good time. I just mean there is a unique feel to this album that I don't think the band have done before, or at least in a very, very long time. The whole thing feels more serious and less goofy, and I really do mean that in the best possible way. I think of all the Avatar albums I've heard before, the one that I think this one most resembles, if I had to pick one, would be Hail the Apocalypse. That album too was very dark, but it did lean onto more extravagant instrumentation as opposed to the hard riffing of this one. Not that that album didn't have hard riffing, but you did have moments of wonderful weirdness like Puppet Show, for example. You don't have anything like that here. That's not to say it's all unfamiliar. I can see Justice being featured on Hail the Apocalypse to a degree. When All But Force Has Failed is probably the most Avatar song of the lot. If you don't know what I mean there, you probably don't. Very Fast reminds me a lot of For the Swarm, one of the better songs on Feathers and Flesh. It's short and it's sweet, it's heavy as fuck. It feels like a mature album for the band at this stage in their career, with a more serious tone overall, and I really enjoyed and admire that. Some bands like, regrettably, Ailstorm get swept up in, the attention that their ridiculous songs get, and then they just focus solely on that, compared to what their brilliant songwriting was originally. Avatar have not done that here. They have their aesthetic and the trademark sound perfectly set at this point, but they don't feel too afraid in shifting it ever so slightly to make things just more interesting every time they release an album. When I saw Johannes being interviewed live at Download 2016, he mentioned he wanted Feathers and Flesh to be different from Hail the Apocalypse. The idea of repeating the creepy, haunted carnival thing put him to sleep just thinking about it. I always respect bands have that mentality in mind. I try and have that mentality in my basic songwriting in my band, and we've only put out one EP, yet we don't want to repeat ourselves. There's no point doing the same thing if the last album had nothing more to be done to it. While I didn't appreciate that when going into Feathers and Flesh after Hail the Apocalypse, I certainly do appreciate it now when listening to Hunter-Gatherer after Avatar Country. It's different, but it's done to a great standard, and overall is an awesome metal album from Avatar. It's well paced, and at barely over 45 minutes it flies by in what feels like 30. I hope these guys don't vanish again, because this band deserves all the attention and admiration they have earned, and I can't wait to see them perform once more. Don't be put off by their aesthetic if you think that kind of thing just looks stupid. This is a really valuable band here, and they deserve all the praise and attention that they get.